The influences are many and varied. In terms of game design, it's partly Plants vs Zombies, partly every RTS game ever, noticeably Company Heroes, which is my real-time strategy game of choice, although I've got addicted to pretty much every RTS game. I played quite a bit of Defense Grid, but that was after I'd started on this game to see what that was like, so it's not really a big influence in that respect. I think of more interest is kind of the attitude, the kind of implied backstory and the sort of fluff around the game, which is, it draws on lots of things. It draws slightly on a Doctor Who episode, the Genesis of the Daleks, and if you forget the Daleks and forget Doctor Who, the kind of backstory to it is that there's these two races that have been fighting a war, and the war's gone on for so long that there's still some people in trenches with gas masks and shotguns, and alongside them there's people with lasers, and I find that very sort of attractive as a kind of backstory and an idea. And it does occur to me that it's kind of an interesting idea that World War I never ended, let alone, you know, World War II, that you've gone all the way from guys in trenches catching diseases and eating rats to the modern day and beyond with mechs and lasers, and that you have a war that is spanning all of that, but with the same attitude that they kind of had to some extent in the First World War and the Second World War, which is exaggerated by Blackadder goes forth, that kind of optimistic, you know, it'll all be over by Christmas, sort of British stiff upper lip, you know, we're in a bit of a pickle here boys, kind of thing, which I quite like, being very English, and I'm also very amused by, Stephen Fry's General Melchett and Blackadder.
I said, how are you?
Permission to speak.
Oh, absolutely top holes are with a yin and a yang and a yippity-doo. Splendid!
I'm massively amused by that, and you know, if there was a market to just do a sort of upper class World War I English general simulator, I'd do that. But there's a big part of that is in the game. It's the idea that you still have the sort of patriotism and you still have the optimism that the war will be over this Christmas, even though we said that 200 years ago. I think combining that with the kind of sort of futility of World War I and lots of people going to their sort of mindless deaths, and I think it works really well with tower defence, because the whole idea of tower defence is absolutely ridiculous, because why are you still walking down this road? There's turrets, you know, what are you doing? It's mad. You're going to march straight into certain death. The motivation for the attackers in tower defence is that you're clearly mental. World War I. You know, the explanation for that is that it's a tower defence game with, you know, Field Marshal Douglas Haig controlling the attackers. Then it makes sense. It is a war where you know, you're sort of going over the top to certain death, and I think that kind of works in with tower defence, and you know, hopefully that kind of all comes together. And it also allows me to have a game where you have World War II's tanks, which are the coolest tanks. I'm a bit obsessed with tanks. I've driven tanks, driven several tanks, and been in all kinds of tanks, old tanks. I've been in a sort of Mark IV, Mark I, the original World War I tank, and I've driven a Challenger tank, and sat in the gunner seat of a Chieftain tank. I live near like a tank training place, and you know, the World War II tanks are the best. The coolest tank ever is a Tiger tank, clearly. And if you could find a way to design a game where you had Tiger tanks but with lasers, fantastic. That's my assumption, and hopefully people will agree, because I've bet a ridiculous amount of time, effort and money on that fact. So hopefully it works.